So, your next program in the WWO was with the Soul Taker.
Mm-hmm.
Any memories of this great feud?
Trevor, he's a good guy. Still is a great guy. That was a time, Trevor. He loved horror movies. He used to wear the mask gimmick to the ring and all this kind of thing. And he loved horror movies. But the thing was with Trevor, though his gimmick was the Soul Taker. When I talked to him, and I actually sketched him too, he was afraid of death. He was obsessed with it. He lived. There's a scene. I don't know if you're familiar with the TV show Mad Men. There's a scene there where this guy's talking about. He goes, "I've lived my life like a sailor on leave, and like a merchant marine on leave, or whatever, and a sailor on a weekend pass." That's how Trevor lived. He would strip joints every night, drinking every night, partying every night, and women and craziness. Meanwhile, he had a wife and 2 daughters, and who he loved very much, and I met them, and they do, and I've talked to him since I told him I was going to be doing this, so he's cool with all this. Okay. But he loved them very much, and they had, and they still have now. They have an even better. He and his wife have now, obviously, a better relationship than they did. But here he was. He wanted to be a family man and all that, but at the same time, he was so afraid of death. It was like carpe diem, seize the day. Tomorrow we may die. That was his attitude, and I started getting obsessed with death because I was living his gimmick a little bit as the chameleon. I was doing the Soul Taker thing. I had my mask, my walk, and my raising from the dead and all that. And I was reading books in the library. When we had a chance in a city, I'd have like 2 hours downtime. I'd go to the library and look up books about death and about what happens. Here I am. It's the question is what happens to us after we die. That's a hard enough question for a lot of people. That's a hard enough question for anyone to try and answer or to grapple with. Here I was, traveling 300 days a year. A young pro wrestler in his 20s trying to answer it. I mean, I had no answer. My answer was take another pill.
So let's talk about a little bit about the famous casket match between you and the Soul Taker. The one where you beat him the first time. Mm-hmm. The first and only time he's lost a casket match.
Yes.
And you essentially, basically retired him.
Yes. That came about out of something that happened in San Diego. We had been in San Diego. We went to a strip joint, of course. I believe it was Les Girls. I think that was the one. And he went home with. He went to the hotel, I should say. We were at a hotel. He went to the hotel with two young ladies, and they were having a good old time. And then his wife decided to show up and surprise him. And she did. She surprised him. And then she almost killed those 2 women, and she almost killed Trevor. She threw a body. She whipped. He told me next day he told me, he goes, "Cam, I was so terrified." She took a full bottle of champagne and winged it at his head. I mean, she was so angry. She was so incensed. And he was ashamed, and he was very apologetic. And he said, this has helped me realize that my life right now, I need to be with my family. And what this business is not good for it. So he basically said, well, Cam, congratulations. You're going to be the one who puts the Soul Taker out of professional wrestling. I'm retiring. And the match was fantastic. We had a great match. We were both sober for it, which was actually kind of a first. I had matches with the Soul Taker, I confess. I had matches. I was so wasted, I barely remembered the spots we were doing. I barely remembered having them. I mean, I was running on instinct. When you go 300 days a year, you get to the point where you can do that. You're a functional drug addict. You're a functional user. And you just be, there were more than enough. They call it a condition, unable to perform, But I performed. I always performed every night. I didn't always perform sober, but that match we were both sober for that, unless you count painkillers, which I was still doing, of course, and all that. But it was a cool match, and we went down into the casket, and we were like hugging each other. We both fell in the casket gimmick and ones, and the flames, pyrotechnics outside, and we're hugging each other. Love you, brother, man. It was a great match, Take care, goodbye. It was our last match, and it was cool. And then I launched out of the coffin.
Oh, that's right, and you were wearing a Chuck the Stud Beastie T-shirt.
That was my next opponent, and I was going after the guy I'd fantasized so much about being my father. This is going to be a little weird, but let's keep going.
All right, how much can you talk about what went down and then what led up to the tragedy?
Well, this is a shoot, right? So
Yeah.
I can talk about a lot. Chuck Beastie had his manager / valet Mimi, and in the ring in front of the marks or whatever, he would order her around and that kind of thing. That was a work. That was a total fucking work. He loved her. He worshipped her, and he wanted to love her even more. I would say he wanted to, but they had some problems, as a lot of couples do. And I'm not going to get too into that here. I get more into it. Some things, like I said, it's easier for me to write them down than just talk about it. But I will say this: he loved her, but there were some issues. And Chuck was a second generation wrestler, so I think he felt a lot of pressure to go into his father's business. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that he would have been a professional wrestler if his father had kind of pushed him in that direction.
If I could just sidetrack for a moment, you brought in Shauna to be your, I guess, quote unquote Mimi.
Yes.
Is that right?
My valet. Yeah, that was cool. It helped us get closer. We had some great times, and it helped us get closer, and that's one of maybe my ulterior motives. I was, still wanting to see if she would date a pro wrestler, but but we had some good times. It was great.
And can you tell us about what happened between, I guess, Shauna in regards to the Darren Domino incident?
Flush. Darren Domino was a prick. He used to H-bomb girls. H-bombing is when you would give a girl a drink and drop halcyon in it. And then when they would be in a very compromised state, and some of the boys would, do certain things to them that maybe the girls, when they were not in that compromise, so whacked out, wouldn't do. God, Darren Domino would H-bomb girls, take them in to his room, have sex with them, defecate on them, and then put them out in the hallway of the hotel. I don't know what the hell it was. He had issues. He had misogyny, obviously, and all this kind of thing. He just had this thing, and that was what he did sometimes. And one time, I think it was in San Francisco, Sean and I had gone out, and we came back to the hotel, and we found this girl in the hallway, because a lot of the boys had rooms in the same hall, or whatever, and Darren Domino had shit all over her, and she was crying, and this, and Shauna was incensed. Shauna was furious. Next day, she in the locker room, she kicked the shit out of Darren Domino.
Really?
She gave him a swirly in one of the toilets, and basically she told him if you ever, and the boys were applauding, right? Everyone was loving it, because Darren Domino was getting his comeuppance, and Shauna said to me, yeah, it's amazing, she said to me, none of you guys had the guts to do that, or felt the need to do that before, and that kind of, it hit home. I mean, I sensed that maybe I was getting a lot of control. Maybe I was, I'm trying to think, Joe. I was seeing so much that I was getting immune, I guess, to the. I mean, I told you I saw the look on your face when I talked about that just now. Someone H-bombing a girl, shitting on her.
Sure.
I mean, it's horrible.
I mean, it's amazing that it basically took a woman to do a man's job. I mean, somebody like Shauna. I mean,
right.
It's crazy, wild, amazing.